The bloodstain on Katherine Vernon's traveling dress had dried to a rust brown by the time she stumbled into Vulture City, Arizona territory, clutching nothing but a carpet bag and her mother's locket. The stagecoach robbery 3 miles back had left her stranded, the driver dead, and her carefully planned future in shambles. It was June of 1878, and the desert heat shimmered off the dusty Main Street as Katherine pushed through the swinging doors of the first establishment she could find. The saloon fell silent as every weathered face turned toward her, taking in her torn dress, wild auburn hair, and eyes still wide with shock. "Help," she managed to whisper before her knees buckled. Strong hands caught her before she hit the sawdust floor. When Katherine's vision cleared, she found herself staring up into the most striking blue eyes she had ever seen, set in a sun-bronzed face beneath a battered brown hat. "Easy there," the man said, his voice low and steady. "You are safe now." Katherine tried to stand on her own, but her legs refused to cooperate. The stranger lifted her effortlessly and carried her toward a table in the corner while the bartender rushed over with water. "What happened, miss?" the bartender asked. "Stage got hit by bandits," Katherine said between sips of water, her hands trembling. "They killed Mr. Henderson, the driver, shot him right in front of me. They took everything, the strong box, the other passengers' belongings. I hid under the seat with my bag. They must not have seen me, or maybe they just did not care." The man who had caught her removed his hat, revealing dark hair that curled slightly at his collar. "Those bastards have been hitting stages for 3 weeks now. Sheriff has been useless tracking them down. Name is Yates Owens, miss. I run a horse ranch about 5 miles north of here." "Katherine Vernon," she replied, finally getting a good look at him. He appeared to be around 24 or 25, with the lean, muscular build of a man who earned his living through hard labor. There was kindness in his eyes despite the hardness that frontier life carved into everyone. "I was supposed to meet my uncle in Prescott. He arranged a position for me as a teacher there." "Prescott is another 40 miles west," Yates said, pulling up a chair. "How were you planning to get there now?" Katherine felt tears prick her eyes but refused to let them fall. She had cried enough when her parents died of cholera in St. Louis 3 months ago. "I do not know. They took everything except this bag. I have maybe $5 in coins sewn into my hem, and the clothes I am wearing." The bartender, a gruff man with a gray beard, shook his head. "Next stage will not come through for 4 days, and they only run to Phoenix now since the attack started. You would have to catch another from there to Prescott." "Do you have anywhere to stay?" Yates asked, his brow furrowed with concern. Katherine laughed bitterly. "With what money? I already told you I have $5. "There is a boarding house," the bartender offered. "Mrs. Chen runs it. She might give you work in exchange for a room." Yates stood abruptly. "Or you could come out to my ranch. I know how that sounds, miss, and I am not suggesting anything improper. But I could use help, and you need a place to stay and earn money for your passage to Prescott. My ranch hand quit last month, and I have been managing alone. It is hard work, but I would pay fair wages and you would have your own room in the bunkhouse." Katherine studied him carefully, her mother's warnings about trusting strange men echoing in her mind. But she had also learned to read people during her 22 years, particularly during the hard months after her parents' death when everyone from bankers to supposed family friends had shown their true colors. There was no deception in Yates Owens' face, only honest concern and perhaps a touch of loneliness. "What kind of help?" she asked cautiously. "General ranch work. Mending fences, feeding livestock, mucking stalls. I have about 30 horses, a dozen cattle, some chickens. I also need someone who can manage the household tasks. I have been living on beans and hardtack for too long, and my clothes are more patches than original fabric at this point. I appreciate the offer, Mr. Owens, but I should be honest with you. I cannot cook or sew. I truly cannot. My mother tried to teach me, but I was always terrible at both. I burned boiling water once. My stitches looked like a blind person did them in the dark. To her surprise, Yates laughed, a genuine warm sound that made the corners of his eyes crinkle. Neither can I, we will learn. Something in those simple words struck Katherine deeply. No judgment, no mockery, just an acknowledgement that neither of them had all the skills they needed and a willingness to figure it out together. It was so different from the expectations that had been heaped on her all her life, the constant comparisons to other young women who could whip up perfect pies and embroider beautiful linens. "Are you serious?" she asked. "Dead serious. Look, Miss Vernon, I know we just met. But I am a decent man, I promise you that. Ask anyone in this town. You can ride back with me now and see the place. If you do not feel comfortable, I will bring you right back to town and help you find something else. But you look like someone who has had a rough time of it, and I know what that is like. Sometimes people just need a chance." The bartender nodded. "Yates is good people, miss. Known him since he was 18 when he first came out here 6 years back. He would not do you wrong." Katherine made her decision. She had learned that sometimes you had to take risks and her choices were limited. "All right, Mr. Owens, I will come see your ranch, but I want to be clear that this is strictly a business arrangement." "Of course," he said quickly. "I would not have it any other way. Let me settle my bill and we will head out. Do you need anything from town first?" "I do not have money for supplies." "I will advance you some wages. You need proper work clothes if you are going to be on a ranch. There is a general store next door." 20 minutes later, Katherine found herself the owner of 2 practical cotton dresses, sturdy boots, a wide-brimmed hat, and basic necessities. Yates paid for everything without comment, keeping a careful tally in a small notebook he carried in his vest pocket. His wagon was waiting outside, hitched to 2 massive draft horses. He helped her up onto the seat, and they headed north out of Vulture City, into the stark desert landscape dotted with saguaro cacti and scrub brush. "How did you end up ranching out here?" Katherine asked as they rode, needing to fill the silence. "Family back in Ohio are farmers. Good, hard-working people, but there were 6 of us boys. Land only stretches so far. I heard about opportunities out west and figured I would try my luck. Spent a few years working other people's ranches, saved every penny and finally scraped together enough to buy my own place. It is not much, but it is mine. That must have taken remarkable discipline." Yates shrugged. "Once I saw what I wanted, nothing else mattered much. What about you?" "You said you were going to teach in Prescott." Katherine gazed out at the endless sky, so much bigger than anything she had known in St. Louis. "My father was a professor. He taught me literature, mathematics, history, languages. My mother wanted me to be a proper lady, but my father encouraged my education. After they died, there was nothing left for me in St. Louis. The house was sold to pay debts. My uncle wrote and said he could arrange a teaching position. It seemed like the best option. Have you met this uncle?" "No. He is my father's younger brother. They had not spoken in years due to some family disagreement, but he wrote a kind letter after the funeral and offered to help." Yates was quiet for a moment. "If you do not mind me saying, that is a long way to travel to meet someone you do not know, for a job that might not exist." The same thought had occurred to Katherine more than once during her journey, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real. "I know. But what choice did I have? Stay in St. Louis and become what? A seamstress? A maid? I am educated, Mr. Owens. I speak 3 languages. I can discuss philosophy and literature. But none of that matters much for a woman with no money and no connections. It matters, Yates said firmly. Education always matters. And you can call me Yates if you are comfortable with that. We will be working together after all. Then you should call me Katherine. The ranch appeared on the horizon, a simple wooden house with a porch, a large barn, several corrals, and a small bunkhouse. It was humble but well-maintained, and Katherine felt something unexpected as they approached. It looked like a place where someone could build a life. Yates helped her down from the wagon and showed her around. The animals were healthy and well cared for, the facilities clean despite clearly being the work of one man stretched thin. The main house was sparse, containing just the essentials: a table, chairs, a stove, a bed in the single bedroom, and very little else. The bunkhouse is through here, Yates said, leading her to the smaller building. It had 2 rooms, each with a simple bed, a chair, and a small dresser. Everything was dusty but structurally sound. This was your room if you want it. I will bring you blankets and linens from the house. There is a pump out back for water and an outhouse between here and the main house. Katherine set down her carpet bag and looked around. It was not much, but it was more than she had any right to expect. It is fine, thank you. You must be exhausted. Why do not you rest, and I will bring you something to eat later. We can discuss the work arrangement tomorrow. But Katherine shook her head. I would rather get started. Sitting still just makes me think about what happened today, and I would prefer to be busy. Yates studied her for a moment, then nodded. All right. Let me show you the evening routine. The horses need to be fed and watered, and we should check their hooves and condition. Then the chickens need tending, and there is always something that needs mending around here. They worked together until sunset, and Katherine found herself grateful for the physical labor. It kept her mind occupied and gave her something concrete to focus on. Yates was a patient teacher, showing her how to approach the horses, what to look for in their health, how to distribute feed efficiently. He never made her feel stupid for not knowing things, just explained each task clearly and let her practice. As darkness fell, they headed to the main house, both exhausted and covered in dust. Now comes the challenging part, Yates said with a wry smile. Dinner. I have beans, hardtack, some bacon that is probably still good, flour, and coffee. What do you think we can make out of that? Katherine surveyed the sparse kitchen and laughed despite herself. I told you I cannot cook. And I told you neither can I, but we have to eat, so let us figure it out together. What followed was a comedy of errors. Katherine tried to make biscuits and created something closer to hockey pucks. Yates attempted to fry the bacon but burned half of it. The beans were undercooked and crunchy. They sat at the table, looking at their disaster of a meal, and then both started laughing. This is terrible, Katherine said, trying to bite into one of her biscuits. I have had worse, Yates lied, making her laugh harder. No, you have not. You are right, I have not. He stood and rummaged through a shelf, pulling out a can. I have peaches. At least we cannot ruin those. They ended up eating canned peaches and the few edible pieces of bacon, along with some of the burned hardtack softened in coffee. It was far from a proper meal, but sitting there with Yates, laughing at their failures, Katherine felt lighter than she had in months. Tomorrow we try again, Yates said as they cleaned up the disaster in the kitchen, and we will keep trying until we figure it out. That seems to be a pattern with you. What do you mean, not giving up, finding a way forward? I notice you do that. Yates paused in his washing of a plate. My father used to say that the only real failure is not trying. You can mess up 1,000 times, but as long as you keep trying, eventually you will get it right. He sounds like a wise man. He is. I should write to him more often. Katherine helped dry the dishes, and they fell into a comfortable silence. When everything was cleaned and put away, Yates walked her back to the bunkhouse with a lantern. "Thank you," Katherine said at her door, "for everything today, for helping me, giving me this opportunity." "You did not have to. Everyone needs help sometimes," Yates replied. "I am just glad I was there when you needed it. Sleep well, Katherine. Tomorrow will be easier." As Katherine lay in bed that night, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the desert, she thought about the strange turn her life had taken. Just that morning, she had been on a stagecoach headed toward an uncertain future with an unknown uncle. Now she was on a ranch in the middle of Arizona territory, working for a cowboy she had just met, about to learn skills she had spent her whole life avoiding. And somehow, impossibly, it felt right. The next few weeks fell into a rhythm. Katherine and Yates would rise before dawn to tend the animals, spend the day on various ranch tasks, and then face the nightly challenge of preparing something edible for dinner. Their cooking improved slowly, with plenty of setbacks along the way. They learned that flour and water in the right proportions could make simple bread, that beans needed to soak before cooking, that checking if meat was done was more art than science. Yates proved to be endlessly patient and surprisingly good company. He had a dry sense of humor that caught Katherine off guard, and he listened when she talked about her parents or her education with genuine interest. He asked her to teach him some of the French she knew, and in return, he taught her how to rope a fence post and identify different plants that grew wild on the property. "That there is prickly pear," he said one afternoon, pointing to a flat padded cactus. "You can eat the fruit and even the pads if you prepare them right. The Indians have been doing it forever. We should try it sometime." "Add it to our list of cooking experiments," Katherine said, wiping sweat from her brow. They were mending a section of fence that had come loose, and her hands were covered in blisters despite the gloves Yates had given her. "Let me see your hands," he said, noticing her wince. "They are fine. Katherine, let me see." She held out her hands reluctantly, and he examined the blisters with a frown. "Why did you not say something? These need to be wrapped." "I did not want to slow us down. There is so much work to do. The work will still be here tomorrow. Come on back to the house." In the kitchen, Yates carefully cleaned and wrapped her hands with strips of clean cloth. His touch was gentle, his focus complete, and Katherine found herself studying his face, the small scar above his left eyebrow, the way his dark hair fell across his forehead when he concentrated, the strength in his hands despite their gentleness. "There," he said, finishing the last wrap. "That should help them heal faster. Tomorrow you take it easier. Maybe handle the chickens and leave the fence work to me. I can work. I know you can. You have been working harder than most men I have hired, but there is no shame in letting your body recover. Toughness is not about ignoring pain, it is about knowing when to push and when to rest." Katherine felt a lump form in her throat at his kindness. "Why are you so good to me?" Yates looked surprised by the question. "Why would I not be? You are a good worker and a good person. That is all that matters." But Katherine sensed there was more he was not saying, something in the way he sometimes looked at her when he thought she was not paying attention, or how he always made sure she ate enough at meals, or the careful way he spoke to her, like her thoughts and feelings mattered deeply to him. She was beginning to realize that she looked forward to their evenings together most of all. After the work was done and they had fumbled through another meal, they would sit on the porch and talk until the stars came out. Yates told her about his childhood in Ohio, his dreams for the ranch, the challenges of making a living in such harsh country. Katherine shared stories about her father's lectures, books she had read, places she dreamed of seeing someday. "You ever regret coming west?" she asked him one night. "Never. It is hard, but it is mine." Back in Ohio, I would have always been one of the Miller boys, working land that belonged to my father, waiting for him to die to inherit a fraction of something. Here, I am Yates Owens, rancher. I built this place with my own hands. That means something. It means everything, Katherine said softly. I understand that, wanting something that is truly yours. You think you will go to Prescott once you have the money? The question hung in the air between them. Katherine had been thinking about it more and more lately. When she first arrived, her goal had been clear. Earn enough for stage fare, continue to Prescott, meet her uncle, and start her teaching position. But now, after weeks at the ranch, the idea felt less appealing. I do not know, she admitted. Part of me thinks I should. It is what I planned, what I came west for. But another part wonders if maybe this is where I am supposed to be. Yates was quiet for a long moment. You should know that I would like you to stay. Not just because you are a good worker, but because I have come to value your company. These past weeks have been the happiest I have been since I started this ranch. But I also know you are educated and capable of much more than ranch work. It would be selfish of me to ask you to give up a teaching position for this. What if I do not see it as giving something up? What if I see it as choosing something I want? Do you want this, I mean? Katherine turned to look at him, really look at him. In the lamplight from the house, his face was half shadow, but his eyes were clear and honest. Somewhere along the way, between burned dinners and early mornings feeding horses, between learning to mend fences and laughing at their failures, she had fallen for this man. This kind, hard-working, patient man who had taken a chance on a stranger and shown her what it meant to build something from nothing. Yes, she said. I want this. I want to stay. Yates reached over and took her hand, careful of her healing blisters. Then stay. Stay and help me build this place. Stay and we will keep learning together. Stay because I am falling in love with you, Katherine, and I think maybe you feel the same way. Katherine's heart hammered in her chest. I do feel the same way. I have for a while now, but I was not sure if you felt anything beyond friendship. I have been half in love with you since that first day in the saloon, when you looked up at me with those fierce eyes and refused to cry despite everything you had been through. And I fell the rest of the way watching you tackle ranch work you had never done before without complaint, and laugh when we ruined yet another meal, and talk about books and ideas like they matter just as much as fences and livestock. Because they do matter. You matter, Katherine. More than I know how to say. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, but Katherine met him halfway. Their first kiss was gentle and sweet, tasting of the coffee they had shared after dinner, and it felt like coming home. When they finally pulled apart, both were smiling. So we are doing this, Katherine asked, if you will have me, on one condition. What is that? Tomorrow night, we try to make an actual edible roast. I found a cookbook in your shelf, and I think if we follow the instructions exactly, we might manage it. Yates laughed and kissed her again. Deal. True to their word, the next evening they tackled the cookbook with determination. The beef roast was a precious commodity, and they were both nervous about ruining it. Katherine read the instructions aloud while Yates prepared the meat, and together they figured out temperatures and timing. It says to brown at first, Katherine read. That means make the outside darker, right? I think so. How hot should the pan be? It does not say exactly. Maybe medium hot. What is medium hot? They looked at each other and started laughing. We are terrible at this, Katherine said, but we are terrible together, so that is something. Despite their confusion, the roast actually turned out decent, not perfect by any means, but edible and even reasonably tasty. They celebrated their victory with a bottle of whiskey Yates had been saving, sitting on the porch and watching the sunset paint the desert in shades of orange and gold. I should write to my uncle, Katherine said, feeling the warmth of the whiskey in her chest. Let him know I will not be coming to Prescott. It is the right thing to do. Will he be angry? Maybe. But it is my life to live, not his. My father taught me that I should make my own choices, even if they are not what others expect. Your father sounds like he was a remarkable man. He was. I wish you could have met him. He would have liked you. What makes you say that? Because you respect that I have a mind. You ask my opinions. You never make me feel lesser for being a woman. My father believed women were just as capable as men, and he raised me to think for myself. Not everyone appreciates that. Yates took her hand. Then those people are fools. Your mind is one of the things I love most about you. Well, that and your terrible cooking. Katherine laughed and shoved him playfully. Your cooking is just as bad, but it is getting better. We are getting better. We are. As summer deepened into fall, Katherine and Yates continued to build their life together. The ranch work became easier as Katherine grew stronger and more skilled. Their cooking improved to the point where they could make several reliable meals without disasters. They tackled sewing next, and while Katherine's stitches remained crooked, they at least held together enough to mend worn clothes. Word got around Vulture City that Yates had taken in the woman from the stage robbery, and while there was some gossip, most folks seemed to accept the arrangement. The bartender who had first helped Katherine spread the word that it was all above board, and Yates's reputation as an honest man helped quell the worst of the talk. In October, Yates rode into town and came back with a small box in his pocket. That evening after dinner, he took Katherine's hand and led her outside. The desert night was cool and clear, stars scattered across the sky like diamonds. Katherine Vernon, he said, dropping to one knee, these past months with you have been the best of my life. You have made this place feel like a home instead of just a house. You have made me laugh, made me think, made me want to be a better man. I know we still have a lot to learn about cooking and sewing and probably 100 other things, but I want to learn them all with you. Will you marry me? He opened the box to reveal a simple gold band with a small turquoise stone, the color of the Arizona sky. Katherine felt tears streaming down her face, but this time they were tears of joy. Yes, yes, absolutely yes. Yates stood and swept her into his arms, spinning her around while she laughed and cried at the same time. When he set her down, he slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. They were married in November by the circuit judge who passed through Vulture City once a month. The ceremony was simple, held in the saloon where they had first met, with the bartender and a handful of townsfolk as witnesses. Katherine wore one of the practical dresses Yates had bought her that first day, but she had spent weeks embroidering flowers along the collar and cuffs, each stitch slightly crooked but made with love. Yates wore his cleanest shirt and a new vest, and when he said his vows, his voice was steady and sure. I promise to always be your partner, he said, to learn with you, grow with you, and face whatever challenges come our way together. I promise to respect your mind and your heart, to make you laugh even when things are hard, and to love you more each day than I did the day before. Katherine's own vows were equally heartfelt. I promise to build this life with you, to work by your side, to bring you joy and comfort. I promise to keep trying, even when I fail, and to celebrate our victories, no matter how small. I promise to love you with everything I am for all the days I have. When the judge pronounced them husband and wife, Yates kissed Katherine like she was the most precious thing in the world, and everyone in the saloon cheered. They spent their wedding night in the main house, which now belonged to both of them. Yates had cleaned and prepared everything, even picking wildflowers to put in a jar on the table. It was not fancy, but it was theirs, built on honesty and hard work and genuine affection. As they lay together in the darkness, Katherine felt a contentment she had never known. Just 6 months ago, she had been alone and terrified, her whole world shattered. Now she had a partner, a home, a purpose. Life on the ranch was hard, but it was good. Real. Honest. "What are you thinking?" Yates murmured, his arm around her. "That I am exactly where I am supposed to be. That getting robbed on that stage was maybe the best thing that could have happened to me. I would not go that far. You could have been killed. But I was not. And if it had not happened, I would be in Prescott right now, teaching other people's children, living in some boarding house, probably miserable. Instead, I am here with you. I am glad you are here with me too. I love you, Katherine Owens. I love you too." Winter in the Arizona desert was mild compared to what Katherine had known in St. Louis, but there were still challenges. A cold snap in January threatened the livestock, and they spent several freezing nights in the barn making sure the animals stayed warm. Yates taught Katherine how to build proper fires and bank them to last through the night. She taught him how to calculate feed supplies and manage their limited budget to make sure they could afford what they needed. They worked as a true team, each bringing their strengths to every problem. When a fence broke during a windstorm, Katherine held the posts steady while Yates hammered them in. When their best mare got sick, they stayed up all night together nursing her back to health. When they were invited to a barn dance in town, Yates taught Katherine the steps he knew, and she taught him a waltz her father had shown her years ago. The ranch began to thrive under their joint care. In the spring, they had several successful foals, which would bring good money once they were trained. The vegetable garden Katherine planted actually produced edible food, a victory they celebrated with enthusiasm. Their cooking had progressed to the point where they could make bread that was not only edible but actually good, stews that were hearty and flavorful, and even the occasional pie that almost looked like what you would see in a bakery window. "We did it," Katherine said one evening, cutting into an apple pie she had made with only minimal help from Yates. "We actually learned to cook." "We learned together," Yates corrected, taking a bite. "This is delicious, by the way. Remember that first night with the hockey puck biscuits?" "How could I forget? I thought we would starve." "But we did not. We figured it out, just like we figured out everything else." Katherine reached across the table and took his hand. "I got a letter from my uncle yesterday. I have been waiting for the right time to tell you about it." Yates's expression grew concerned. "What did it say?" "He was angry at first that I did not come to Prescott, but then I wrote him back, telling him about you, about the ranch, about our life here. His new letter was different. He said he was happy I found my place, and that my father would have been proud of me for making my own choice. He also said if we ever need anything to write to him." "That is good. I am glad you have family looking out for you." "I am glad too. But you are my real family now, Yates. You and this life we have built." By their first anniversary, the ranch was doing well enough that Yates could afford to hire help, a teenage boy named Tommy who wanted to learn the ranching trade. This gave Yates and Katherine more time together, and they used it to continue improving the property. They built a proper chicken coop, expanded the barn, and even added a small room onto the house that they designated as a library, filling it with books ordered from back east. Katherine had started tutoring some of the children in Vulture City, riding into town twice a week to teach reading and mathematics. She did not charge much, just enough to help with supplies, but it gave her a sense of purpose beyond the ranch work. She was using her education, making a difference, just in a different way than she had originally planned. "You are glowing lately," Yates observed one evening as they sat reading in their library. "Something you want to tell me?" Katherine set down her book and smiled. "I have been waiting until I was certain. I am with child. The baby should come in late summer." Yates's face went through a series of expressions: shock, joy, concern, and then pure happiness. He crossed the room and knelt beside her chair, taking both her hands. "Are you well? Do you need anything? Should you be riding into town? Maybe you should not be doing the heavy ranch work anymore." Katherine laughed at his sudden protectiveness. "I am fine. Women have been having babies forever. I will be sensible, but I am not going to stop living my life. Besides, we need the income from my tutoring at least until the foals sell. We will manage. I do not want you taking risks. I will not, I promise. But Yates, this is good news. We are going to be parents." He pressed his forehead against hers. "I know. I am terrified and excited in equal measure. I do not know anything about being a father. And I do not know anything about being a mother, but we will learn, together, just like everything else. You are right. We will figure it out." He placed his hand gently on her still flat stomach. "Hello in there. I am your father, and I promise to do my best by you. I promise to love you and teach you and help you become whoever you are meant to be. And I promise to always make sure you know how extraordinary your mother is." Katherine felt tears well up. "These moods are going to be unbearable for the next few months, just so you know. I can handle it. I can handle anything with you beside me." The pregnancy progressed smoothly, though Katherine found the summer heat more oppressive than usual. Yates became impossibly attentive, making sure she rested in the shade during the hottest parts of the day, bringing her cool water constantly, taking over all the heavy work despite her protests. "I am pregnant, not dying," she said one afternoon when he insisted she stay inside while he mucked out the stalls. "I know, but humor me. I like taking care of you. You take too good care of me, I will get spoiled. Good, you deserve to be spoiled." In August, on a night when the heat finally broke and a cool breeze swept in from the north, Katherine went into labor. Yates rode hard to town to fetch the doctor and Mrs. Chen from the boarding house, who was known for helping with births. By the time they returned, Katherine was in the bedroom, breathing through contractions with the determination she brought to everything. The labor lasted through the night and into the morning. Yates paced outside the bedroom, terrified by every sound, until Mrs. Chen finally emerged with a smile. "You have a son," she said. "Both mother and baby are healthy." Yates rushed into the room to find Katherine propped up in bed, exhausted but radiant, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in clean linens. "His son. Their son. Come meet your boy," Katherine said softly. Yates approached slowly, almost reverently. The baby was red-faced and wrinkled with a surprising amount of dark hair. When Yates reached out and touched one impossibly small hand, the infant's fingers wrapped around his thumb. "He is perfect," Yates whispered. "You are perfect. I cannot believe we made this. We did, together. What should we name him?" They had discussed names for months without settling on anything. But looking at his son now, Yates knew James, after your father, James Vernon Owens. Katherine's eyes filled with tears. "Really? You would do that? Your father gave me you by teaching you to think for yourself and make your own choices. I would be honored to name our son after him. James Vernon Owens. It is perfect." The first months of parenthood were exhausting and wonderful in equal measure. Neither Katherine nor Yates had any idea what they were doing, but they learned together, just as they had learned everything else. How to swaddle the baby so he slept better, how to tell different cries apart, how to function on almost no sleep. Tommy, the ranch hand, proved invaluable during this time, taking over many of the daily tasks so that Katherine and Yates could focus on their newborn. The people of Vulture City rallied around them as well, with women from town bringing meals and hand-me-down baby clothes, and the men helping Yates with major ranch work. "It takes a village," Mrs. Chen said one afternoon, holding James while Katherine finally got a proper bath. "You two have been good to this community. Of course we help when you need it." By James's first birthday, Life had settled into a new rhythm. Katherine had returned to her tutoring, bringing James with her strapped to her back in a sling Yates had fashioned. The ranch continued to prosper, and they were able to expand their herd and improve their facilities. On their third anniversary, they sat on the porch watching James toddle around the yard, chasing chickens and laughing at the chaos he created. "Can you believe it has only been 3 years?" Katherine asked. "Sometimes it feels like we have always been together." "Best 3 years of my life," Yates replied. "Though I occasionally miss the days when we could sleep past dawn." "Liar. You love every minute of being a father." "I do. I really do. I love watching him discover the world." Everything is new and exciting to him. He is like you that way. You still find joy in simple things. It is one of the reasons I fell in love with you. Yates pulled her close. "I fell in love with you because you were brave enough to take a chance on a life you knew nothing about. You could have taken the safe path, gone to your uncle, become a teacher in a proper school, but you chose this hard, uncertain life instead. It is not uncertain anymore. It is solid and real and ours. We built this together, Yates. That is what I am most proud of. Not just the ranch or our family, but the fact that we did it as true partners. You never expected me to be something I am not. You let me be myself. You are the strongest, smartest, most capable woman I have ever known. Why would I want you to be anyone else?" James chose that moment to fall face first in the dirt and immediately start wailing. Katherine and Yates both jumped up to help him, and the tender moment was lost in the practicalities of parenthood, but the love remained, woven into every small action and shared glance. 2 years later, Katherine gave birth to their second child, a daughter they named Clara Marie. She had Katherine's auburn hair and Yates's blue eyes, and from the moment she entered the world, she had her own fierce personality. Where James was cautious and thoughtful, Clara was bold and adventurous. "She is going to be trouble," Yates said with delight, watching his 2-year-old daughter attempt to climb onto a horse by herself. "She is going to be extraordinary," Katherine corrected, "just like her brother." By the time James was 7 and Clara was 5, the Owens Ranch was one of the most successful in the territory. They had 35 horses, 50 head of cattle, and a thriving vegetable garden that supplied not just their family but several others in Vulture City. Katherine's tutoring had evolved into a small school that met in a building the community had built together, where she taught 15 children reading, writing, arithmetic, and history. Yates had been elected to the town council and was working to bring more services to Vulture City, including a proper sheriff to replace the ineffective one, who had never caught the bandits who had attacked Katherine's stage all those years ago. Those bandits had eventually been caught by a U.S. Marshal and hanged for their crimes, bringing some closure to that terrible day. On a cool evening in November, Katherine and Yates celebrated their 8th anniversary with a rare dinner alone, the children staying overnight with Mrs. Chen, who had become like a grandmother to them. 8 years, Katherine mused, looking at Yates across their dining table. They were eating a roast she had made entirely by herself, cooked perfectly, alongside vegetables from their garden and bread that had risen just right. "We have come a long way from those first burned dinners. We have come a long way in everything. Look at what we have built. This ranch, our family, our place in this community. None of it would exist without both of us working together. Do you ever wonder what your life would be like if you had not been in that saloon the day I stumbled in? Never. Because I cannot imagine any life better than this one. You and the children are everything to me, Katherine. Everything I work for, everything I build, it is all for us. For our family." Katherine raised her glass of wine. "To us, then. To 8 years of learning and growing together. To 8 years of partnership and love. Yates clinked his glass against hers. To us, and to all the years still to come. After dinner, they moved to the porch, wrapped in a single blanket against the chill. The stars were brilliant overhead, and in the distance, they could hear coyotes calling to each other. "I have been thinking," Katherine said, "about the future, about what we want for James and Clara." "What about it?" "I want them to have choices, real choices. I want James to know he can be anything, do anything. A rancher like you if that is what he wants, but also a doctor or a lawyer or a professor if that is his path. And I want Clara to know that her gender does not limit her. She can run this ranch, or she can go to university, or she can forge her own path entirely. I want that too. We will make sure they have every opportunity we can give them. More than opportunities. I want them to know what we know. That the best things in life come from hard work and partnership. That it is okay to not know how to do something as long as you are willing to learn. That love is not just a feeling, it is a choice you make every single day." Yates kissed her temple. "Then we will teach them that. By example, the same way we have learned everything else. Together." Over the next several years, Katherine and Yates watched their children grow. James proved to have his mother's intelligence and his father's work ethic, excelling in school while also learning every aspect of ranch management. He was gentle with the animals and patient with his younger sister, who followed him everywhere. Clara was indeed trouble in the best possible way. She could ride better than most boys twice her age by the time she was 8. She asked endless questions about everything and was never satisfied with simple answers. She wanted to know how things worked, why things were the way they were, and she was not afraid to challenge authority when something did not make sense to her. "She is exactly like you," Yates told Katherine one evening after Clara had spent an hour arguing about why women should be allowed to vote. "She is better than me, braver. I spent years trying to fit into boxes other people made for me. Clara refuses to even acknowledge the boxes exist. Because we raised her that way. Because you showed her what a strong, capable woman looks like." When James turned 16, he announced that he wanted to attend university back east. Katherine and Yates had been saving money for years for exactly this possibility, but it was still hard to imagine their son leaving. "Are you sure?" Yates asked. "The ranch will be yours someday. You do not need a degree for that." "I know, Pa, but I want to study veterinary medicine. I want to come back and help not just our ranch but all the ranches in the territory. Animals get sick and injured, and usually folks just have to guess at treatment or put them down. I want to be able to really help." Katherine hugged her son tightly. "Then you should go. Follow your dream. We will be here when you come back. If you come back," Yates added quietly. "I will come back," James promised. "This is my home. I just need to learn some things first." Clara, now 14, declared that she did not need university. She was going to run the ranch with her parents and eventually take it over herself. This led to long discussions about inheritance and fairness, with Katherine insisting that whatever they built should be divided equally between their children, regardless of what paths they chose. In the end, they had a lawyer draw up papers ensuring that James and Clara would inherit equal shares of everything, with the understanding that whoever was actively running the ranch would make the day-to-day decisions. It was fair and practical, and both children accepted it. The year James left for university was hard. The house felt too quiet without his steady presence. But he wrote letters every week, telling them about his classes, his professors, the incredible things he was learning. His letters made Katherine cry with pride and Yates beam with satisfaction at the man their son was becoming. Clara stepped up to fill the gap James left, working even harder on the ranch and proving herself more than capable. At 15, she could do everything Yates could do, and several things he could not. She had a natural way with horses that was almost magical, able to calm even the most skittish animals. "You are going to put me out of a job," Yates told her one afternoon after she successfully trained a difficult mare that had been giving him trouble for weeks. "Never, Pa. You are still the one who taught me everything I know. I taught you the basics. Everything else, that is all you." On Katherine and Yates's 15th anniversary, they threw a proper party, inviting everyone from Vulture City and the surrounding ranches. The barn was decorated with lanterns and ribbons, and there was music and dancing and more food than any gathering had a right to. James had come home from university for the celebration, bringing stories and books and a newfound confidence. As Katherine and Yates danced together, surrounded by their friends, their children, and the community they had helped build, Katherine felt overwhelmed with gratitude. "What is it?" Yates asked, seeing her tears. "I am just happy, so incredibly happy. Sometimes I still cannot believe this is my life, that we built all of this from nothing. Not from nothing. We built it from determination and love and a willingness to learn together. We built it from that very first day when you told me you could not cook or sew." Katherine laughed through her tears. "And you said neither could you, and we would learn. Best decision I ever made. Well, second best. The best was asking you to marry me. I love you, Yates Owens. I have loved you for 15 years, and I will love you for 50 more. Only 50. I was hoping for at least 60. She kissed him there on the dance floor, not caring who saw, and the crowd around them cheered. The years continued to pass, marked by both joys and challenges. A drought one year tested their resources, but they managed to keep their livestock alive through careful water management and the support of neighboring ranches. A harsh winter another year killed several cattle, but they recovered. James graduated from veterinary school and returned home to set up practice, becoming the first trained veterinarian in that part of Arizona territory. Clara married a good man named Samuel, who worked on a neighboring ranch, and they built a house on the Owens property, becoming true partners in running the operation. Katherine and Yates became grandparents 5 times over, watching with joy as their children raised families of their own. They stepped back gradually from the hardest ranch work, though both remained active and involved. Katherine continued teaching until she was 60, when her eyesight began to fail and she finally retired. Yates worked the ranch until he was 65, when a fall from a horse convinced him to let the younger generation take over the physical labor. They spent their later years exactly as they had spent their younger ones, together. They sat on their porch every evening, watching the sun set over land they had built a life on. They told stories to their grandchildren about the old days, when Arizona was still a territory and Vulture City was barely more than a mining camp. They laughed about those first terrible meals and the fence they had mended together, and the day Yates had proposed with a turquoise ring. "You have any regrets?" Katherine asked Yates one evening. They were both in their 70s now, their hair gray, their faces weathered, but their love as strong as ever. "Not a single one. Everything I wanted I got. A home, a family, a purpose, and you, always you. I used to think my life was over when my parents died. I thought I had lost everything that mattered. But really, I was just beginning. That stage robbery was not the end of my story, it was the beginning of our story. The best story I know, better than any in those books of yours, because it is real, because we lived it together." Yates took her hand, his grip still strong despite his age. "I told you that first day that we would learn together. We have spent our whole lives learning. How to cook, how to sew, how to run a ranch, how to raise children, how to be grandparents. But the most important thing I learned is that I can do anything, face anything, as long as you are beside me. I learned the same thing. I learned that home is not a place, it is a person, and you have been my home for more than 50 years. They sat in comfortable silence as the stars came out, the same stars they had watched together for decades. In the house behind them, they could hear their family, James and his wife preparing dinner, Clara and Samuel playing with their grandchildren, multiple generations all together under one roof. Katherine thought about that terrified young woman who had stumbled into a saloon in Vulture City all those years ago, clutching a carpetbag and wearing a blood-stained dress. She had been so lost, so scared, so uncertain about the future. She could never have imagined that the blue-eyed cowboy who caught her would become the center of her entire world. That together, they would build not just a ranch but a legacy, not just a marriage but a true partnership. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" "For catching me when I fell. For giving me a chance when you had no reason to. For being patient while I learned. For loving me exactly as I am. For building this beautiful life with me." Yates raised her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "Katherine, my love, my partner, my best friend, you never have to thank me. Catching you that day was not me doing you a favor. It was the universe giving me the greatest gift I could ever receive. You made my life worth living. You gave me purpose and joy and a family I could not have dreamed of. If anything, I should be thanking you. Then we will call it even. We saved each other. We did. And we built something beautiful together." As the years advanced, Katherine and Yates remained inseparable. When Katherine's health began to fail in her late 70s, Yates was at her side constantly, just as she had been at his during his own illnesses. When she could no longer walk easily, he carried her to the porch each evening so she could watch the sunset. When her memory began to fade, he patiently reminded her of their stories, their history, the life they had shared. "Tell me again about our first dinner," she would say, and he would describe the burned bacon and hockey puck biscuits until she laughed. "Tell me about James's birth," she would request, and he would recount every detail he could remember of that terrifying, wonderful night. "Tell me why you love me," she would whisper, and he would list reasons until she fell asleep in his arms. Katherine passed away peacefully at age 79, surrounded by her family. Yates held her hand as she took her last breath, whispering that he loved her and would see her again someday. The grief nearly broke him, but his family held him together. James and Clara took turns staying with him, making sure he ate and slept and did not give up. His grandchildren visited constantly, filling the house with noise and life, and reminders that Katherine's legacy lived on in all of them. Yates lived 3 more years, years he spent telling stories about Katherine to anyone who would listen. He told them about her intelligence and her courage, her terrible cooking that had improved to excellence, her dedication to teaching, her unwavering partnership. He made sure everyone knew that everything good in his life had come from taking a chance on a stranger in a saloon, from being willing to learn together, from building a life side by side with the woman he loved. When Yates passed away at age 82, it was in his sleep, peacefully in the bed he had shared with Katherine for over 50 years. His last words, spoken to Clara the evening before, were about her mother. "She was everything," he said, "everything I could have wanted and more. Tell your children and their children that the secret to a good life is finding someone willing to learn alongside you. Someone who will laugh at your failures and celebrate your successes. Someone who sees you exactly as you are and loves you anyway. That is what your mother and I had. That is what I hope everyone finds." They buried Yates next to Katherine on a hillside overlooking the ranch, under a sky as blue as his eyes had been in his youth. The entire town of Vulture City came to the funeral, along with people from all over Arizona, whose lives had been touched by Yates and Katherine Owens. James gave the eulogy, speaking through tears about parents who had taught him that anything was possible with hard work and partnership. Clara added her own words about a mother who had shown her that women could do anything, and a father who had never doubted it. The grandchildren shared memories of laughter and love, of lessons learned and stories told. Years later, the Owens Ranch still thrived, run by the third and fourth generations of the family Katherine and Yates had started. The main house had been expanded and modernized, but the original structure remained at its core, including the porch where two people had fallen in love over burned dinners and honest conversation. In the library Katherine and Yates had built together, now filled with hundreds of books, there hung a single framed document. It was a letter, written by Katherine to her uncle all those years ago, explaining why she would not be coming to Prescott. The final paragraph read, "I found something here that I did not know I was looking for. Not just work or shelter, but a true partner. Someone who sees my worth not in what I can already do, but in my willingness to learn and grow. Someone who laughs at our failures and celebrates our small victories. Someone who believes we are stronger together than we could ever be apart. I am staying, Uncle, not because I am giving up on my dreams, but because I have found new ones, better ones. Dreams that I can build with my own hands alongside someone who believes in me. I hope you can understand and support this choice. I am finally home." Visitors to the ranch, hearing the story of Katherine and Yates, often stood before that letter with tears in their eyes. Because it was not just their story, it was the story of what love could be when two people met as equals, admitted their vulnerabilities, and chose to face life together. It was a story of partnership and respect, of laughter and hard work, of building something meaningful from nothing but determination and mutual support. The story of Katherine and Yates Owens became a legend in Vulture City and beyond. It was told to young couples starting out, to people facing impossible choices, to anyone who needed to hear that it was okay to not have all the answers, as long as you were willing to learn. That sometimes the best things in life came from unexpected places, from taking chances on strangers, from saying yes to uncertainty. And at its heart was a simple truth, expressed in 5 words spoken by a cowboy to a desperate young woman so many years ago. "Neither can I. We will learn." Those words had changed 2 lives, started a family, built a legacy. They were carved into the shared headstone that marked Katherine and Yates's final resting place, a reminder to all who saw them that the greatest journeys began with honesty, humility, and a willingness to walk forward together into the unknown. The ranch continued to thrive, generation after generation, built on the foundation Katherine and Yates had laid. Their descendants carried forward their values of hard work, education, partnership, and love. The school Katherine had started still operated, teaching children that learning was a lifelong journey. The veterinary practice James had established still served the community, saving animals and livelihoods. The tradition of working together, of combining strengths and supporting each other through weaknesses, remained central to how the family operated. On the evening of every anniversary of Katherine and Yates's wedding, the family gathered on that original porch. They would share a meal, always including something notoriously difficult to cook, in honor of those early disasters. They would tell the old stories again, keeping the memory alive for the youngest generation. And they would raise a glass to Katherine and Yates, to the love that had started it all, to the partnership that had built everything they now enjoyed. Because in the end, that was what mattered most. Not the ranch or the money or the success, though all of those were good. What mattered was the love, the partnership, the willingness to be vulnerable and learn together. What mattered was finding someone who saw you completely and chose you anyway, who laughed at your failures and celebrated your growth, who stood beside you through every challenge and every victory. Katherine and Yates had found that in each other, two people who admitted they could not cook or sew, who confessed their incompetence, and then rolled up their sleeves to learn together. They had built a life, a family, a legacy, all because they were willing to be honest about what they did not know and brave enough to figure it out side by side. Their story was not about perfection. It was about persistence. Not about having all the answers, but about being willing to search for them together. Not about being complete on your own, but about becoming more complete by combining your life with another person's, creating something greater than the sum of its parts. And so the story of Katherine and Yates Owens lived on, told and retold, inspiring each new generation to seek out their own partnerships, their own learning journeys, their own chances to build something beautiful from nothing but love, hard work, and a willingness to say, "Neither can I." We will learn. The sun continued to set over the Arizona desert, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The ranch continued to thrive, animals grazing peacefully, children playing in the yard. And on a hillside overlooking it all, two simple headstones stood side by side, marking the final resting place of two people who had learned that the best things in life were built together, one imperfect day at a time.